I am a poet first, and now writing fiction. So curious about characters and how they contribute to plot. I discuss in this presentation how maths inspired a novella and assisted character development. And as I start the presentation with a dedication, I will also mention other crossroads of literary creation. I dedicate the book to Megan and Riley, mathematicians in their 20s, and their toy poodle puzzle, because they took me to Bath. The first time we stayed on a hillside cottage in Perrymead, on the edge of a small forest. This became narrator Cara's annual autumn home, when her and Puzzle searched for burgundy truffles. The next time, we stayed in one of the 4 towers of Cleveland Bridge. A character called Avon, named after the river Avon, is a sculptor, and he is partly inspired by a real artist, Peter Hayes, whose studio is in one of the other bridge towers. As Avon does in the story, Hayes really submerges some of his works in the river, and the chemistry that causes coloration of the white clay creates a blue-green wash. Last but not least, Megan, Riley and Puzzle, to whom I dedicate the book, taught me to delight in what they call limestone hour, when the city glows gold and is most breathtaking from the Bath skyline. This is where narrator Cara connects in thought with her absent heart companion R, who helps her unravel the knots of the story. So on to the topic of knots in a mathematical context. The book opens with the poem Paradoxical Ode. Inspired by knot theory and topology in general, the poem is written by James Clerk Maxwell, mathematical physicist from the 19th century. Let me explain one definition before we read the poem. Amphichiral knot is a knot that can be smoothly reshaped into its own mirror image, meaning it looks the same as its reflection. Here is the poem. My soul's an amphichiral knot upon a liquid vortex wrought, by intellect in the unseen residing. Since all the tools of my untying in 4-dimensioned space are lying, where playful fancy intersperses whole avenues of universes. For a few moments, I will just pause to let you run your eyes across the book's table of contents to give you a feel for its structure and the chapters. And then on to talking how maths inspired the story and assisted character development. And then I will touch on 2 as resolution, pairs, mirrors, tensions, and balance. As alluded to before, a science-art dynamic runs through the story between maths, specifically topology on the one hand, and character development as part of the art of fiction writing. In the red season where human and creature cross paths, one could say that a mystery is untangled in a, quote, mathsy spirit, unquote. And I say this because it works in a playful and stretchy way rather than literally and logically. Here is a disclaimer. I am not a mathematician, but mathematics inspired me generally and specifically enabled me to work with the important concept of change which drives character development. Topology is also called rubber sheet geometry. It holds that a thing retains its essence even if and while it changes shape. To make topology concrete to the uninitiated, let me begin with one small example from the book. To find balance after her coding day job, narrator Cara bakes on Saturdays. While the dough changes shape, the essence of the pastry remains. Now onto some key shape changings linked to key characters. To set the scene for things stretchy, I first quote the prologue before we begin. Before I read the prologue, let me just utter another disclaimer that my doodles should by no means be seen as art. Quote, for a good night's sleep on summer nights, mops use two methods. They remove their stomachs. It is much more agreeable for mops to sleep without a belly. Second, because mops are sensitive to heat, they hang upside down from low drooping trees. Sleeping like this, their great mops of hair do not cover them, but cascade away from their bodies down to the forest floor, tumbling over their muters, who crouch, scrawny bodies folded up like camping chairs, sharp knees pointing upwards, hugged by thin arms. Folded like this, each muter's body is veiled by its upside-down hanging mop's hair. A camouflaged muter listens out for the sound of wings, the wings of the yellow eyes, thieves of tums. Each muter's life purpose is to guard the tummy of a mop. Early in life, Rufus, like every mop, was assigned his muter, Max. Unquote. Think shape changing. Through a zip, voracious Rufus the mop removes his stuffed tummy. It shrinks, crumples through the night. In the morning gets stuffed back in. Against all this malleability, Rufus's stubbornness, his refusal to change, plays out. On to a second case. The arms of Rufus's scrawny sidekick Max Muter stretch and shrink as he multitasks to overnourish Rufus. Besides guarding Rufus's tum at night from the gluttonous gaze of the yellow eyes, Max constantly also grooms Rufus's hair, detangling, braiding, and tying in charms collected on their unplanned adventures that are brought on by Rufus's laugh wobbles. The point about topology is the object, tum, arms, mane, keeps its true nature, even if it changes, and change it does. For a while in her forest cottage on the edge of a limestone city, Cara cares for the jovial, unmanageably restless mop who resists the change of settling with his tribe in winter, as mops do. And she cares for his exasperated, sleep-deprived muter. Then these creatures vanish. And all the while, there is Cara and her yearning, and the input of her absent present heart companion R, named after the programming language. With R's help, Cara untangles the mop muter mystery by balancing Euler's formula F minus E plus V equals 2. The shapes of these symbols manifest in Cara's surroundings where key events play out. And so, as Cara's pastry does, and Max's arms, and Rufus's tum, each stays the same and changes. You're invited to trace each character's inner and outer transformation, as one finds in The Hero's Journey by Campbell, 1949. Including those characters not mentioned here, such as Diana and Swoosh. Brody says that the one who changes the most is the main character, and therein lies the second mystery for the reader to unravel. Amphichiral knots in topology are knots that can be reshaped into their own mirror images, and this concept inspired me to link characters in pairs. It helped with the story's internal cohesion, and here are some examples from the book. As I said, the end resolution, the final resolution, depends on balancing Euler's equation, F minus E plus V equals 2. And note that this puzzle or mystery is resolved when it equals 2. But leading up to the resolution, throughout the book, there are also mini pairings or mirrors. For example, mathsy-minded Cara hanging upside down in one scene from a tree branch, as summer mops do at night. And this action helps her to spot in the forest floor the shape of an F from the equation. Thinking with these pairings, mirrors, and tensions helped me to develop characters, to show how they changed. For example, towards the end, Puzzle, the unkept toy poodle, allows Max to groom him, and this in turn enables Max to stop over-nurturing Rufus the mop, who eats so much that he obsesses over his need for a second stomach. Once Max refrains from fussing over his mop, Rufus matures, or does Rufus mature and therefore Max stops fussing? Either way, highly strung Max finds a constructive outlet in the relaxing chore of grooming Cara's pet instead. And a last example, Max's infamous baptism broth made from the dancing mushroom, which is the thing Rufus obsesses over, tethered to Cara's burgundy truffle soup, which is the delicacy less addictive and more nourishing to Rufus. My presentation may not have given you a coherent overview of the storyline, though I hope you have a sense of how maths inspired the character development that contributes to plot. I thank you for listening.